Hi, this is Marsha Gomes McKee, and I'm the founder of Karen Books Foundation. Welcome to our 2020 Conversation series. This week, we'll be having Trunix, and she'll be looking at things you should consider when designing your book cover. Trunix is an editor in Trinidad and Tobago. She does developmental editing of fantasy, adventure, mixed, romances, genre, light, horror, anthologies, poetry, devotionals, and even cookbooks. She also do final proofreads, and she is ready to edit any of your books for publishing. So you can get her editing services by request, and her information is available on our website. Welcome, Trunix.
Hello, it's your friendly neighborhood Caribbean editor here, Trunix. Normally I do developmental editing, but this year I'm here to talk to you about book covers and all the things you should consider when designing one or paying someone to design one for you. Okay, so first let's get a few things out of the way. This talk is really for self-publishers, mainly because you will have to oversee all the aspects of publishing your book. And in some aspects, you will have to guide the people that you are working with. So you need to know what your book cover is supposed to look like. And so you can actually guide the cover artist about how it is you want it. So hopefully by the end of this, you will have an idea of the notes that you should make, that you're sending to them, so that you could actually guide the process better. So no, this talk is not really to encourage you to make your own book cover. I mean, if you do have like training in graphic art or illustration, yeah, sure, go ahead and and you have a very clear idea of what you want your book cover to be, go ahead and try it. At least now you have more information about what goes into a book cover. But otherwise, I would not suggest that you make your own book cover. And the reason for this is that, there's a reason why we hire professionals. You want your book cover to stand out. At least you want it to be on par with book covers that come out of traditional publishing companies. This is the first thing that people are going to see before they ever read your story. So, the format, the book cover art, everything, it needs to be clean. It cannot be looking shabby and unprofessional. It needs to have at least all the basic information that a book cover should have on it. Otherwise, people will pass it by. So, you don't want to. There's so many things that you have to put in when you're self-publishing your book, and all of them are important. And this is just giving you some more information on this specific aspect of putting together a book cover. Okay, so first let's talk about the different parts of a book cover. And it's different depending on what cover format you're designing. The different formats are ebook, paperback, hardcover, and audiobook. Don't forget that one. That one is always important as well. And the way how they differ is that the ebook, you'll just need a front cover. For the paperback, you need the front, back, and the spine. For the hardcover, you need those three things, front, back, and the spine, but you also need the inside flaps for the dust cover. And for the audiobook, it is just a front cover, just like the ebook. Now, when I say you need these things, I mean these are the elements that you will be designing on. No, of course, there will be other things that you will have to design, like the chapter art, the header and the footer, if you want like any art on any numbers of the pages. But right now, we're just going to focus on the outside, what people see when they grab the book off of the shelf to take a look at it. All these pieces, the front, the back, the spine, the flaps on the dust cover, is space meant to be used to capture your audience. So think of it as a billboard for advertising your story. So let's get into exactly how you do that. So I've identified 7 basic elements that every book cover should have. So first we have the book title and any subtitle that might be attached to it. We have the author name or any pen name. If the author is using a pen name instead, that should also be on the book cover. And then we'll have the series title, if that is applicable, of course, and the number in the series. Now note that the author name, the book title, the series title, any the number in the series, that should also be on the spine of the book as well, so that when the book is in the shelf, people can easily glance and see which one it is. Of course, if your book has less than 50 pages, most likely there won't be any space on the spine to put anything, unless it's like a hardcover book. Right, and then last but not least, on the front cover is the actual cover art itself, which it's the centerpiece of the book cover. It can be a photo or illustration or some kind of nice graphic art or lettering. Yeah, and that's it for the front cover. So now we're going on to the back cover of the book, the elements that are normally there. First we have the blurb. Right, the blurb is normally anywhere between 100 to 200 words, and it's a brief summary of the book without any spoilers. Now, the blurb is normally placed on the back of a paperback, but in a hardcover, you can also find it on the flaps to the front of the book. Another element is the author bio. Normally it's accompanied with the picture of the author itself, and it just gives like a little details about the author, like where they live, and you could also check in any accolades that they have. It's just a very short paragraph. It's not very long. And on the paperback, it's on the back of the book, and on the hardcover you can find it on the back flaps. The last element that every book has is the ISBN and publisher information. Now that is normally to the back of the book at the bottom. You'll find the ISBN number and the publisher's logo or like their address or something like that. So there is a whole video in this series about ISBNs and what it's about. But what I will say about ISBNs concerning your book cover is that each of the formats, it needs a different ISBN. We had talked about the formats before: an ebook, a hardcover, a paperback, and audiobook. Yes, they say that your audiobook also needs an ISBN. Now, the reason why this is important to your book cover is that you need to put the ISBN on your book cover, and you need to give this information to the cover artist or the person who's formatting your book. Now, if you are uploading your ebook to like Amazon, what Amazon does is that they actually incorporate your ISBN into the barcode, so you don't have to physically put it into your cover design. But with your hardcover and your paperback, you'll have to do that, and you don't want to mix up the two. Like when you're sending it to print, you're sending the print cover for the hardcover, but it has the ISBN for the paperback on it. You know what I mean? So it's important for the book cover so that you don't mix up your ISBNs. Now, a way that people solve this is just that they make a different cover for each format, but that's a lot of money. You don't need to do that. You can make one cover and just like label it properly so you know which cover goes where, because it has the proper ISBN attached to it. Okay, so next we have the names of the people who did the illustration or the cover art, and in the case of an audiobook, the book narrator. Now, I didn't really want to put this in basic elements because it's not something that you find on every book cover, right? But it is something that you can do, and it's not really one of the other elements that I'm going to talk about now that kind of help push the marketing and the sales of your book, like give it a little more clout. So it's kind of in the middle, but yeah, this is something that you should also put on your book cover. If you have a cover artist, like it's a children's book and there's an illustrator, sure, put that illustrator name on the cover. I mean, you can also put it on the inside of the book as well, on the copyright page. But yes, or you could put it on the back of the book. I've seen it on the back of the book as well. And when you're doing your audiobooks, make sure and put the name of the person who narrated the book on the cover page, the front cover page as well. You know, it doesn't have to be as big as the author's name, but it should be there to give the reader that information if they're looking for it. Now, the following elements will give your book cover a little more clout, but not every author is able to like have these things beforehand to put on their book cover. So if you don't have it, don't worry. Just focus on the first seven and that will be fine. So some book covers also have what you call taglines. A tagline is basically like a one-liner, like a catchy phrase from your book. It's normally placed on the top of the front cover most of the time. And it's used to grab like the excitement of the reader, like this one liner that just catches, your attention. And mostly you see like movies do this as well, like on their movie posters and in their trailers and stuff, but it's also something that books can utilize. Technically, this is something that you can like have handy for your book cover before it launches, because this is just a random line from your book that you think, kind of encapsulates, the essence or the action of what is going on in the book. But it's not something that you see regularly on book covers. So, if as an author you think it would be appropriate for your genre, you can go ahead. So another element that you see sometimes on book covers are endorsements from authors and reviewers. Now, normally you will see these on the header, like over the blurb. In the hardcover, the whole back page is sometimes just filled with short line reviews from other authors and reviewers. What you can also do is if you have like a really short good one, you can put it to the front of your book, like right at the top, like just a nice little review. And of course, you always have to put who these reviews are from, like if it's from an author, if it's from a magazine, if it's from, you know, a newspaper or something like that, right? No, we are dealing with the outside of the book, but if you have a paperback and you have like a lot of them, what I've seen authors do is like one of the first pages before the story starts, they just like assign a whole page to just all the endorsements that they receive. Now, the reason why you won't find this on a lot of books is because this takes some time to get, and you have to plan well beforehand in order to get it. So, months before your book comes out, you have to send out ARCs and you have to actually get all these comments and reviews from people. So, by the time your book is ready to launch, you will be able to include it in your book cover, so when people pick it up at the bookstore, when they're looking at it, they will be able to read the reviews in the book instead of going and searching for it online, and then they can get a better idea of if it's something they would be interested in. Right. So another thing that you see on books sometimes are like author accolades and book awards. And I've seen this, all over book covers. It could be on the front, on the back, at the top, at the bottom. It could even be in your author bio, if it is something that you have to list. Because what happens is that sometimes these book awards will give the authors like a little circular sticker, like a little award pin that they can actually put on the book. Now, sometimes it's a physical sticker, but not all readers really like a physical sticker on their book. But what you can do as an author is you can get an imprint of it and you can include it in your cover art. Now, if your accolade doesn't come with a fancy sticker, that is fine. You can just list it at the top or at the bottom of your book. This book was a winner of this so and so award in this year. It's very simple. Of course, keep the print small. Don't have it bigger than like your title or the author name or something. It's just a little note just to give your book that extra clout. All of these things do give your book that extra professional edge, but at the end of the day, it is up to you if you want to put it on your book. I know a lot of authors, they want their books to look a certain way. A lot of this, sometimes it feels like clutter if there's too much of it. Like if you want your book to have a nice sleek look, you may not want like all these reviews on it and everything, but depending on the genre, um or if you're an author that you had like a really successful book before and this is like a sequel to it and you want to remind people, you may want to put like reviews from the previous book about how good it was, so that you could kind of engage people, readers, new readers, so be like, okay, maybe I should go out and buy the other book, things like that. You have to decide if it's going to be something that will push the marketing and the sales of your book. Okay, so it's time for a tea break. We're about halfway through, so before I get into the next sections of this presentation, just a little more information on me. I'm True Nix, a developmental editor and proofreader with the Caribbean Books Foundation. My editing services website is called Writers Eagle. You can sign up at truenix.wixsite.com/writerseagle. My profile is also listed on the Caribbean Authors blog, which is the Caribbean Books Foundation's blog. It's under the resources for writers and illustrators in the editors directory. And when you sign up on my website, you get notifications when when I open back the story development programs that I run. I normally accept applications a few times a year. I can do a full developmental edit for your manuscript, which involves a deep dive, very in-depth working with the author to improve their story, or for authors who don't need too much hand-holding but do want to pass it by another eye to see what they may have missed. I have a short manuscript assessment service instead for that. As for social media, you can find me on LinkedIn at TrueNix, and you can also find me on Twitter at Writers Eagle, at Editor TN. I'm also on Facebook at TrueNix Projects, but I normally use that page to post from my blog Critics May Lie. But you can contact me on any one of those, even though I don't use it specifically to promote my editing. Right, and the tea break's over. Back to the presentation. So I did want to touch very quickly on the sizes of book covers, but instead of trying to explain about aspect ratios, I'm just going to direct you to a source that can help you figure it out, or that is if you're doing it for yourself. But if you're sending it to a graphic artist, they would definitely be able to figure it out, especially if they're using Photoshop or Procreate or something like that to do the cover design. So I'll be linking it in the description below this video. Basically, it's a reads the article that just tells you the aspect ratio for each of the different book cover formats. So you'll have an aspect ratio for that you normally use for audiobooks, an aspect ratio for hardcover, and so on and so on. So you'll be able to apply it to whatever program you're making the book cover in. What I will say about book covers though, just so that you have the reference in your mind, audiobooks are normally squares, while ebooks are rectangular. That is the main difference. Your cover must be high resolution. That simply means that it shouldn't be blurry or pixelated even when you zoom in. Book covers for hardcovers and paperbacks also tend to be rectangular. It's just that the rectangle is a little bit wider. So that is the little difference in the aspect ratio compared to the ebooks. And if you're making a book cover for a cookbook or a children's book, it gets even wider, that rectangle. Sometimes it even it goes the other way. It's a horizontal rectangle instead of a vertical one. So it could even end up being a square, but of course it would have a higher resolution than an audiobook, which is just something that you would view on a screen compared to something in your hand. So you need to make sure that your book cover is very high resolution so that when it's printed, the picture would be clear. So the second resource I wanted to show you is Canva. I will actually go into it so you can see what it is they offer where ebooks are concerned. Okay, so basically what I really wanted to show you with the sizes, outside of the information that I've already given with the sizes, what I wanted to show you on Canva was, again, as I said, this is not really a talk about how to make your own book cover, but what I do like to do for myself with my own books, or to help authors, to just tell them, okay, this is something you can do temporarily. You can make a book cover with Canva. Now Canva has preset templates. Let's just look for book cover. Right, they have preset templates, and right, basically you can just take one of their ready-made templates and you can switch it around, and you can use it as a temporary cover for, like, if you're sending to beta readers, or if you just want something to, send off to someone who is like reading your book for the first time, if you just want some feedback or something on it until you get the cover that you actually want. Now, like for instance, let's click on this one here, Love at First Sight, and then it opens a totally different window, and you can actually edit this book cover. Let's just make it a little bit bigger. Ooh, what is all of this? Right, good. So what you do is you can just like click here, you can change the name, right? You can go up here, you can change the font, you can change the size of the font, right? You can change the name. This little artwork here, if you go in the corner here, you go into elements, because this is an element. Anything that looks like an illustration is an element, and you see they're giving you similar graphics to it. So let's see, let's pick this one instead. Click on this one, delete it, put this one in its place. Let's make it a little bigger. Right, so that's what I mean by you can make like a little temporary something, and you can make a little book cover to put on your book, especially if it's something that is, you're not really ready to publish it yet, but you do want to get some feedback, but you want it to look a little official. You can do that. Okay. The other thing with this, if you go into file up here, you get to see the size. Now the thing with the Canva sizes is that this is just a little smaller than an actual book cover, which I think is like 1600 pixels by 2500 or something like that. It's just a little bigger. Now, of course, this is for ebooks, but from what I can see, there are also templates. The templates that I chose here is for an ebook, but from what I can see, let me see if I search templates. What would I search for? Content page, template for a content page, right? So you see in here how it's saying it has 1 of 4, right? So this one actually has like several pages. So if I choose it, I can actually add a page. So if I click add here, yes, add as a new page, right? You see, so we get a new page added, and then I can actually edit this page. Oh, I shouldn't have taken that one. No, this is a right. So this is a chapter page, and then if I add this one, you have a contents page, right? So you can do little things in Canva, like if it's just a free ebook or something that you're doing, and I'm not sure how the dimensions will come up, like if you're making a real, like, a ebook that you're selling on Amazon or something like that. But from what I know, Canva, they have the resolution of their pictures and their templates are really good. And of course, this is a free template. If you want to resize it according to the actual size, you will have to get Pro. And if we go back here and you look at like the little templates, you'll see the ones that have the crown by it. You need Pro to access that. And some of them have like a little dollar sign. That one just means that if you want to use that template, you have to pay a one-time fee, and you can use it. You don't necessarily have to get Pro, or you could just use one of the free ones and you could adjust it how you want. So that's really just what I wanted to show you with Canva. It's a nice little and it does like a lot of other things you can do with it. You can make Instagram posts, Facebook posts. I know a lot of content creators, they use Canva. Caribbean Books, this is our account. We use Canva for our content creation. Yeah, but that is really what I wanted to show you where the sizes were concerned. As I said, you can go check that article on Readsy. It's something that you can share with the cover art designer that you're working with, the person who's formatting the book. Let them see the dimensions that they will have to be working with, depending on if you're doing a hardcover, a paperback, or an ebook or an audiobook. This is also good for like if you're doing a mock-up of your book cover, like exactly where you want the words to go, exactly where you want the cover art to be positioned, and then you could send that to the cover artist or the book formatter so they have a better idea. Okay, so the last thing that we're going to talk about is how do you choose a good book cover? And by choosing, I mean how do you create one? And even if you're not the one that is physically creating it, you still need to have an idea in your mind of exactly how you want the book cover to look so that you can actually send those notes to the cover artist or the person who's formatting your book. So the first thing you can do is look at books in the same genre as your book to get ideas. Now, why are you doing this? It's not so much so that you can copy them. It's so that you can get an idea of the layout that readers will expect, what the kind of covers that people are used to in this genre. Book covers tend to follow a certain tone depending on the genre. So, for instance, romance books tend to be, either their covers tend to either be light-hearted and flirty with like pastel colors, or they tend to have like warmer tones, for like if it's a dark, sexy, erotic novel, and they have like live models on the cover, you know, you know, the illustration has depiction of like love scenes and things like that. Whereas if you have like an adventure, fantasy, or sci-fi book, the color palettes will be a lot darker, a lot of blues and reds and greens, and it will more have illustrations of scenes from the world on it, because you as the writer, you're trying to like give the reader a depiction of the world that you're creating. You won't find like the same covers from a romance novel on an adventure novel, right? So the vibe of your cover needs to match the tone of the genre you're writing in. So it's a good idea to just kind of, especially like covers from different eras, because every few decades, the type of like the way book covers are presented in a genre kind of changes. So make sure that the years that you're looking at books from recent times, or if you want, you could go a kind of retro look, it depends on the age and the audience that you're targeting, which brings me to my second point. Consider your target audience. Even if you are writing a romance, a YA book would have a different cover than an adult romance novel, right? So, in short, no half naked people on romance books for young adults, please. Keep it sweet and flirty, just very subtle. Depending on your audience, you will know how, what kind of book cover would be appropriate. Okay, so the next thing you have to think about is what is your color palette going to be? Think about the colors that will fit into your story. Remember, your book cover is an extension of your narrative. At first glance, it should give the readers an idea of the vibe of your book and the mood of your story. Is there maybe a particular scene in the book or recurring symbol in the story that represents a theme? Things like this can make great cover art. But not just the cover art, the line art. You also have to indicate exactly how you want that to the cover artist and the person who's formatting your book. Just changing the color or the shape of the font can give your book a different edge. These are things that you need to take note of and send it to the person who's doing the book cover for you. You also need to decide what kind of cover art you want. Do you want an illustration and a graphic abstract piece, a photograph, just font or lettering with no pictures on your cover. These are the things that you have to decide to get a clear picture of what you want in your head on your cover before you hand it over to somebody to start working on it. So if you weren't making notes, let's review. The front cover, back cover, spine, and dust flaps are all areas on the outside of a book that you can use to put information to promote your story. And it's good to know what traditionally goes where so that it's easy for your readers to find it. There are 7 basic things every book cover should have on it: the book title, the series title, and number if applicable, the author name or the pen name, the blurb, the author bio, your ISBN and publisher information, and some kind of engaging cover art. If applicable, you should also list the illustrator's name and the narrator's name on the audiobook. Some other things that you can have are taglines, endorsements, author accolades, and any book awards that your story would have won. Try to utilize as many of the elements mentioned to provide your reader with information about your story and why they should read it. Each book cover format should be the correct size to avoid your cover looking blurry and to ensure it fits the intended medium, like online readers, and that it looks good in print. And from the color palette to the design, you should try to have a clear idea of how you want your book cover to look, and it should match your book's genre and should be appropriate for your target audience. Right, and that's the end of the presentation. If you've made it this far, you get to know that I'm offering a free manuscript assessment. You can email nikitagomes@yahoo.com to find out more details about that, but please do it before the 12th of March, as that is the deadline. Thanks so much for watching this presentation in the Caribbean Books Foundation Conversations with Editors and Illustrators series. You might be wondering, what do you do now? Well, my suggestion would be go and brainstorm. It's time to decide what your book cover is going to look like. I would suggest that you sit down and lay out with a sketch, or as I said, you can also use Canva on how you want your cover to look. Don't be afraid to sketch. It doesn't have to be perfect. Most cover artists and illustrators prefer if you give them an idea of some kind of sketch of what you want so that they can work with. The point is that you take some time to brainstorm so you can see what works and what doesn't. This was Trunix. See you again in the next installment.